Welcome to another exciting episode of the Epic Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Brad Sugars, the Chairman and CEO of Actioncoach, and today we're diving into the minds of some incredible business leaders, uncovering their real stories, strategies, and the secrets behind their victories. It's not just about success, it's about the journey, the hurdles, and turning challenges into opportunities. So let's jump right into it. Good day, everybody. My name is Coach Andy O'Brien, and welcome to another episode of the Epic Entrepreneur here, powered by Actioncoach. I am so excited to have our guest here today, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about her business and where she's from. But Ene Gaines, welcome. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much, Andy. Yeah, I'm located in Coeur, Idaho. And it's, for those that don't know, it's the very small tip at the top of Idaho. We're about 2 hours from the Canadian border. And very close to both Montana and Washington. So we're just like a little sliver in there. I own Home Instead, and we are a senior care franchise, and our goal is to keep seniors happy and healthy at home.
Oh, that is wonderful. And before you all jumped on here, it's such a small world. I have an aunt and uncle that live up in that area. And no, shamefully, I've not been to your area, but you're giving me on my bucket list to get some things done. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So let's just jump in really quickly to this. So what are the top 3 things you did that made you successful in business?
So it's been quite a journey, but I would say the number one thing is just never giving up. My husband and I opened the business 13 years ago, and we felt like we didn't have any other option but to make it work. And when you think you don't have a way out, it's amazing what you come up with to make it work. You find a way. So that was number one. The second was hiring good people. We moved to an area. We moved from Colorado, so we didn't know anybody here. It's a fairly small, close-knit community. So we didn't have a lot of credibility. And so one of my first hires was someone that was very well known in the area and very well respected. And we would say, we'd be talking about a business and we'd say, well, Mary, da-da-da-da-da. And they'd say, oh, Mary Thomas works for you? Yeah, she does. Well, then, and it was just this huge door opener. So, kind of that combination of good people, but also people who had connections. That was really important. And the third thing was I hired a coach. And I did that about 1.5 years ago. We had made it through COVID, and I'll explain a little more about that eventually. But then business was really struggling, and I thought, this is my future. This is my retirement. I really don't want to start over again at 56. And so someone introduced me to Ted Schmidt. He's my coach, and it has just transformed my business.
That is amazing. Ted is a great coach. I'm so excited that we're here today. So let me take you backwards for a minute, and then we'll work back up to it. So back in the beginning, right? So you said 13 years ago. What made you decide to go into this type of particular business?
Well, so I was, my degree is actually nonprofit management and fundraising. And so I had done that for many years. And then I stepped out for 9 years to raise my kids. I have 5. And I went back to work for the Alzheimer's Association as a fundraiser. And at the same time, my aunt was going through cognitive decline. And I was just hooked. I was like, this is a difficult thing to live with. This is, it just robs you of so much. And at that time, one of my sponsors was the Home Instead in Northern Colorado, which is owned by Mike McGuire. And he hired me to do marketing. And I thought, I don't really want to work for a for-profit. But he was convincing. And I got into the business, and I just seeing seniors thrive in their own homes, knowing that they didn't have to go to assisted living, that they could stay where they were. And we know with dementia in particular that really you don't want change. Change can be very disruptive. It can make dementia appear worse. And so if we can keep people where they are, and at the time my husband was working for a continuum care facility, and that's a community that has independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing, They also had rehab and memory care. And he said, I think we should start our own homestead franchise. We should purchase our own franchise. And I went to my boss, Mike, and I said, I don't know, Mike. I mean, I'm happy here. I was probably on track to be their general manager down the road. And he said, and I have never had an employee that worked my business like it was their own. And he said, I think you'll be successful. So I thought, okay, stamp of approval. So, but it never crossed my mind that I would be an entrepreneur, a private business owner. It was never something I considered. So we moved up here and opened our doors and started out with nothing. So.
Oh, I love that. And that's a lesson I think we all go through. And I think that's a very common theme that we hear here. So that leads right into that. So you talked about, we had nothing, but we started it. Passion and purpose is so big, and I can obviously hear it in your voice. But when you look at this, in all the time that you've been in business, we touched on you hiring a coach. But before we go into that, what has been the biggest challenge that you've had in your business? And for the folks that are listening, how did you overcome it?
So there were two, but there's been three big challenges. But the first one was just starting out and not knowing anybody and pounding the pavement. We call it shoe leather marketing, and just getting the word out. And we became known as the company that would do anything. And so we had, just to give you for instance, we had an assisted living in Post Falls, and they have an independent area. And so we wanted to come in and help their independent people so they could stay independent and not have to go to assisted. Well, a long story short, I flew to Arizona and picked up a resident for them and brought her back.
Wow.
And
wow,
it was just sort of that we would do anything. We would do whatever it took to build that reputation of the company that was going to come through for you. And so that was the first thing. And then, of course, hiring Mary, who was very well known, and she gave us tremendous credibility. Our second, kind of on that theme of hiring good people, our second big challenge was 6 years in, my husband was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, no.
And at that point, we had a really amazing team in the office. And because they were so good, it allowed me to step away for 20 months to take care of him until he passed. And they actually grew the business in my absence. So having people on your team that you trust, that understand your mission and are passionate also about what you do is, it's amazing what your staff will do for you if they believe in you and they believe in what you're doing. So that was huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And then the third was we kind of coasted along. COVID was particularly difficult because we're home care. So we are dealing with the population that is most affected by this variant.
Mm-hmm.
And so really navigating that. And we made it through, but we had a horrible time hiring caregivers, and a lot of people were scared to work. And so the business was really struggling. And so that's when I realized that I needed to make this work, that this was my future, that I really was passionate about it, but I needed help. I was not on my own. There were just skills and things that was missing that I needed. And so I reached out to a coach.
I love it. So that perfect segue, like you read the questions already. So tell me, how did you personally have to grow and first to hire a coach? How did you have to grow to hire Ted as your coach?
Well, I didn't grow. I was desperate.
Oh,
I was hair on fire. My numbers were plummeting. I didn't know how to right the ship. And it became kind of this self-fulfilling prophecy, or this icky cycle, because, things look bad and then you get discouraged and it becomes this downward spiral. And what I learned in coaching, I think, was that at the end of the day, I was setting the tone. And the tone I was setting was, not that we couldn't do it, but just this tone of desperation. And that's not really a fun environment to work in for anybody when you feel like you're just really holding on.
Well, thank you for being so courageous and vulnerable. So if you look at that, so I'm glad that you had that learning. So let's talk about that journey and with the business coach for a minute. So where you started and where you're at today, you talked about where you started. What are the learnings you've gone through and where are you at today?
So, well, the first thing was, just learning that I was the leader and I set the tone. And then really drilling down on every area of my business and figuring out where I needed to shore up operations in each area. But initially, that was just overwhelming. That felt overwhelming. I knew I needed to get a handle on my business, but I just didn't even know where to start. And so Ted really helped me kind of drill down on what was most important. And so it's things like we had job descriptions, but let's go through them. Let's make sure they really are accurate. Let's make sure my key players know what those expectations are. We also drilled back a little bit and did less marketing and said, let's make sure that the clients that we have are happy, because it's easier to keep a client than to always be getting a new one. Are we really delivering on the promises that we've made to our families? And so, that was the beginning, I would say.
Yeah.
And then it's just really honing my leadership skills. So that's things like having key performance indicators and holding my staff accountable. It's also celebrating successes. And I had to make some pretty big changes in my staff as well, because at that point, I just really I didn't have the people on board the bus that I needed. And so we made some changes there. And we're probably double. Our monthly revenue is double what it was a year ago.
Amazing, amazing. We love to hear that. So if you're talking to people out there, let's just do a brag on Ted. What would you tell people about your coach and business coaching in general?
I would say, business coaching, I would have done this. I would have done this 10 years ago if I'd known. I would have done this 13 years ago when we opened our doors. And my Home Instead franchise is great, and they do have business development coaches. But sometimes I felt like it was all just about the numbers. And Ted has helped me drill below that to the things that lead towards those number successes. Does that make sense? So it's not just, are you reaching this goal, but it's like you and I mentioned a triathlon. We mentioned Ironman because Coeur d'Alene has Ironman here. And, you can say, I want to run this 26K 3 minutes faster. But what are you doing what training are you doing to make sure that you reach that goal? And that's the part where Ted, and he is really brilliant at just kind of listening to me vent and drilling down on exactly where it is I need to focus. The other thing he's done is we've done the Y and disc indicators for our business. And so that's been really helpful too, because our staff have a better idea of why people do what they do, what their motivators are. And so it helps you understand how people approach things so that you can be a little more gracious and understand how all of those differences actually can complement each other.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well done. Well done. All right. So if you're looking at this final question, so what piece of advice would you give, top advice of all the things that you have learned in your lifetime? What would be the top piece of advice you would give to another entrepreneur today?
I would say develop your leadership skills. That would be the top. And for me, a coach allowed me to do that. There's all kinds of books out there, and I read some of them, I poo-pooed some of them, but having somebody walk that journey with me and holding me accountable and challenging me, I think has allowed me to do that. And I still have a long ways to go, but we're working on it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, you just brought me to another question. If that's okay, is it okay to ask you another question? Great. So with the help of your coach and these leadership skills, Where is it you're taking your business for your community?
Well, for my community, I mean, that's a really big question. For me, it's a lot of things. It's being able to help more seniors, and it's interesting because it's not just the seniors, but it's their families. So we talk a lot about allowing daughter to go back to being daughter and son to back to being son, as opposed to being primary caregiver. So it's giving that family back their family. So that's one thing. A lot of joy in hiring people. I mean, I have people that depend on me, caregivers that depend on me for a paycheck, and they're doing work that is meaningful. And I joke that a lot of my caregivers would be volunteering if they weren't working for me, because they just have that heart. And that's actually what we look for in a caregiver, is someone with just kind of that really generous, caring heart. And so knowing that I'm helping support families through jobs is huge. And then, of course, the goal is to grow my key players, help them, expand their knowledge, help them become better leaders. And I don't have this idea that they have to work for me forever. I mean, I'd love to have them forever, but hopefully they're growing in a way that they can go on to other things that challenge them. And then finally, I'm trying to secure my retirement. I want to make sure that I grow my business to a point that, down the road when I need care, I can sell and I can support myself so that I won't be a burden on my kids. That's really the goal.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Ene, thank you so much for being with us on this episode of Epic Entrepreneur Podcast. Again, for those of you that are around the area, it is Ene Gaines, and her business is Home Instead. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
And that's a wrap for today's epic conversation here on Epic Entrepreneurs. Huge thanks to our amazing guest for their pouring their heart into sharing their journey. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button, leave a review, share it, or hit that bell. But until next time, let's make sure you keep dreaming, take massive action, and stay epic.